Oh, howdy. Oh, how in the hell? Have you ever been haunted by an inanimate object? 'Cause I have. God, it's a bitch in traffic. But what if it occurs in more than one instance? Stop following me around. The Sony Pocket Station is a memory card peripheral only released in Japan with an original release date of December 23rd, 1998, but would be delayed by a month and released on January 23rd, 1999. The Sony Pocket Station is extremely similar to the Dreamcast VMU memory card released on November 27th, 1998. Both plug into the memory card slots on the consoles and play bite-sized minigames. And bite-sized truly means bite-sized. The Pocket Station is bumping a monochrome LCD screen, which means it's not playing Austin Powers Pinball. Well, at least I still have Austin Powers on Game Boy. So how does this tie into the PSP? Well, it sold roughly 5 million units. I have to admit, I don't really think Sony saw that one coming either. I mean, come on, Sega invented the idea of putting a screen on a memory card, and Sony came in and said, don't mind if I do. So what did Sony do with this newfound memory card robbery? Create a portable console. The success of the Pocket Station in Japan proved that the gaming market wanted another form of portable gaming, and it didn't necessarily have to come from Nintendo. Nintendo, what's to say? Nintendo continues to dominate the handheld market year after year, starting with the Game Boy in 1989 in the US and Japan, and in Europe in 1990. Other companies would attempt to ride the success wave of the Game Boy, such as the Sega Game Gear in 1990, and Atari's Atari Lynx in '89. These consoles were actually superior to the Game Boy, and hell even the Game Boy Color, but lacked one thing: Austin Powers on Game Boy! Over time, these handhelds would begin to fade away due to a lack of killer game to compete against the Game Boy juggernaut. Games such as Tetris, Metroid 2, and most notably Pokemon would continue to raise the bar. Nintendo would continue to grow the Game Boy brand, creating both a color and advanced. And with nobody to compete with Nintendo, who would level the playing field? Welcome to E3 2003. Games such as Half-Life 2, Doom 3, and many more would be announced, but one item would stand out over the rest. The PSP would be unveiled by the man himself, Ken Kutaragi. He is considered to be the father of PlayStation, and for good reason. He oversaw the PS1, 2, 3, and would also oversee the PSP, but sadly departed from the company in 2007. But it isn't all bad news. He did announce the PSP, a worthy competitor to Nintendo's line of handhelds. Kind of. While the lifetime sales of the PSP were still outstanding, selling over 82 million units, Nintendo still had him beat. After the Game Boy saw tremendous success, Nintendo would continue to impress with the DS during E3 2004, a year after Sony unveiled the PSP. Even with this year head start, Sony would fall compared to Nintendo. The PSP was set to release in March of 2005, a few months after the DS, and in its first week would generate over $150 million in revenue. Nintendo, in comparison, would only generate $75 million in its opening week. This head start wouldn't last forever. Hell, the DS brand would assassinate the PSP brand. In the end, selling over 150 million units compared to the PSP's roughly 80 million, but that's still extremely successful and isn't anything to snicker at. Continuing with the E3 trend, Sony would unveil their own physical format called the UMD. UMD stands for Universal Media Disc, and boy did Sony push this tiny tank of a format. It can hold up to 1.8 gigabytes of storage and is encased in plastic. I mean, come on, how am I supposed to get Tobey Maguire out of here if he's encased in the plastic? The UMD would live and die by the PSP and would never see another use in any other electronic. It makes sense, since it was a battery killer and it probably isn't that safe to have a spinning disc this close to your face. Wow, I've never been this close to the action before. It kind of feels like an involuntary homicide. Anyways, let's look at the console that haunts my bathroom. Come on, man, don't be shy. All I need is the rubber ducky. Look at this bad boy. It has a D-pad, thumbstick, a place to put an outdated format. It was made for Nicolas Cage on the go. There were multiple models consisting of the names 1000 model, 2000 model, and 3000 model. Each would receive special editions in the form of different colors or special decals. Kratos looks pissed. These were the main models of the PSP up until the year 2009 with the release of the PSP Go. This was a digital-only console that downloaded games through Sony's PlayStation Store. It's not a bad idea, but come on, Sony, we're 4 years into the PSP's life cycle, and after making such a big deal out of the UMDs, why would you release a digital-only console? I get it, it was almost the end of the PSP's life cycle, but then you go and release this? It lacks Wi-Fi compatibility, but in a twist brings back UMD support on top of only being released in PAL territories. I mean, it was released in 2011 and only for $100, meaning it was likely a last-ditch effort to sell a few more consoles before the next generation. But only in Europe because fuck everybody else. Okay, with the big European debacle of 2011 out of the way, let's look at the PSP models people will be most familiar with. I personally only have the 2000 and 3000 models. The 1000 model was a bit beefier and had a little more weight to it. The PSP 2000 would improve on most, if not all, issues present with the original model, such as improved battery life, a better screen, more RAM on top of weighing less. The jump from the 2000 to the 3000 wasn't as big, minus how divisive people are on each's screen. The Sony PSP community had themselves a little World War III. The 3000 model had a wider screen gamut, which basically means the range of something, and don't worry, I looked that word up so you don't have to. So wondering whether or not I have a small case of dyslexia caused by the English language, what other changes did Sony make to the PSP screen? Honestly, this is quite interesting to read into. Technically, the PSP 3000 had a better screen compared to the 2000. The 2000 suffered from issues with ghosting. Ghosting is when an object moves, but some of the pixels remain in a previous location, creating a poor man's motion blur. Personally, I've never had an issue with this, so I'm just taking the internet's word on this one. And trust me, you always trust the internet. The 3000 wasn't perfect either. Although the screen is considered to be infinitely better, it struggled with scan lines. So in short, it doesn't really matter which one you pick, all have their nice little individual quirks. Well, the 1000 model didn't come with AV support! So with that out of my system, I want to take a look at the PSP launch titles compared to the DS and see how they fare. The DS launched with... well, at least Madden 05 is here to keep me some company. No, Mario 64 on DS is great, but that's it. Comparing it to the PSP, it wins by far, offering a lot more variety, you know, that you actually want to play. Things like Ape Escape, NFL Street, and Metal Gear Acid offer different and decent gaming experiences on the go. I've played these games in passing, but nothing serious. One man can only handle so much Tiger Woods. So what games made me pick the PSP over the DS more times than not? Pinch me, I must be dreaming! Listen, I may be a bit biased because I love the Rock Band games and the PSP offered the best way to play them on the go, and since you don't have to lug around a plastic guitar everywhere you go, I have to admit, Harmonix did a pretty good job with this one. You press the face buttons in order to hit the notes and move to the different instruments with L and R. I just found this string, I hope it leads to more Rock Band. Well, ain't that a bitch? But what if you're a sinner and don't like Rock Band on the go? Killzone Liberation offers an enjoyable shooting experience, but that's not it. Others such as RPG Maker, Battlefront 2, and Final Fantasy Core also offer great and enjoyable gaming experiences on the go. But this wouldn't matter. Nintendo would produce games like New Super Mario Bros., Mario Kart DS, and others, and eventually win the mini-console war. In the end, it's easy to see why Nintendo won. Their games are easy to jump in and out of. For example, Super Mario 3D Land is set up in levels that are short and made for quick play sessions. The PSP tended to have games that were watered down PS2 games, which is fine. Most of these games were extremely impressive for the hardware that they were on, but Thrillville wasn't made for short bursts. So what else can you do with a PSP? Well, you can watch movies. Thank God, because how else was I going to watch Christmas with the Cranks?